Hello, hello.
Happy birthday.
Ah!
It's not your birthday the day we're recording, but it's birthday.
But it's birthday month.
It's birthday month, so...
Get ready for me to be insufferable.
So, birthday month means birthday topics. Happy
birthday month means that Kate gets to decide everything.
Yep.
And I am very happy about it.
Do you decide to give me $100,000 via the government?
Via the government? Sure. The government can do whatever they want. I decide.
Government, you heard her. It's her birthday.
Yeah.
You can't say no.
It's true. It's my golden birthday.
Right.
I turned 25 on the 25th.
Also, somebody told me today, when you turn 25, you're closer to the year 2050 than the year you were born.
Cool. We have to go.
This is our fastest episode.
I can't do this anymore. Don't like that. Even
happy
don't like
birthday.
That even a little bit. Thank you. I normally hate my birthday. This year, I mean, I'm talking in future tense because as we record, it is very much not my birthday. But I've decided that it's going to be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about my favorite things.
Okay.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Jane, and this is Creeps and Coffee,
A show where we talk about the dark parts of the world around us.
Cryptids, conspiracies, things that go bump in the night.
And the crimes behind the scariest creatures of all, humans.
Join us as we take a look at the stories sure to give you the creeps.
Pull up a seat, grab a coffee,
and let's have a chat.
Shockingly, we're not talking about the Titanic today.
Mm-hmm. But this is still a Caitlin episode.
It is very much a Caitlin episode. And I was about to say, don't be too disheartened, because if you subscribe to our Patreon, you will be able to hear me talk about the Titanic.
It's true.
So in case you really just couldn't handle not hearing me talk about Titanic, don't worry.
Or check in next year around this time, and same deal, there'll probably be a new Titanic thing.
Or look at my Instagram. There's probably something on there. But the thing with me, as we all know, as anyone who talks to me for more than 30 seconds knows very well, I love history. There are a handful of historical events that just have such a grip on my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot explain to you why.
This being one of them?
Titanic is obviously the main one. But our topic today, I'd say, is like a solid second place.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Dyatlov Pass today.
Dyatlov Pass.
Ask me how excited I am.
How excited are you?
Super.
How excited?
How excited are you? Stupid excited. So, I first heard of the Dyatlov Pass incident when I was actually, I feel like I was pretty young. I feel like I was probably 13, 14.
Too young.
It was, too young. And I remember being interested because I find it to be a fascinating story. Any sort of unsolved mystery is a lot of fun. I was interested, but I never really did that much research on it until the topic came up again when I was in my early 20s.
You showed me it in Italy.
Did I?
Yes. We were drunk on some Italian alcohol, sitting there eating our 7th pizza, and you were like, look at these YouTube videos about this murder mystery case thing.
100% forgot that I did that until you said it, and now I absolutely remember.
It was awesome.
But, honestly, when I tell you that it was something completely beyond my control that drew me to this story,
Hey, I get it. It's me with Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, same thing. So in researching all of this, obviously you look at all the different sources, you get a good sense of different perspectives on it. But I consistently return to a reference book by a man named Donnie Eicher called Dead Mountain.
What is it?
Dead Mountain.
Okay.
Which I would like to point out is not to be confused with a similarly fantastic book by Keith McCloskey called Mountain of the Dead. Also about the Dyatlov Pass incident. So in his experience writing this book, why I think it's such a good resource and why I personally love it so much is Donnie also became the first person outside of Russia to attempt to visit the location of the incident in the winter, to attempt to redo the hike, redo the trek in the exact same path that they would have done it. And he was also the first person to bring the true untold story of Dyatlov Pass to life by interviewing the only survivor.
Yeah.
So there was one lone survivor of the Dyatlov Pass incident who unfortunately passed away in 2013. Donnie Eicher was the first and only person to ever get a full interview out of him. He was in his home. He made sure that it wasn't just an insane story or an over-sensationalized story. Mm-hmm. He wanted to hear from this man who, yes, happened to survive, but also lost 9 of his really close friends.
Yeah.
In a very tragic way. And has 100% had to live with a lot of survivor's guilt because of it.
Yeah.
So Donnie worked very closely with this man to bring Dead Mountain to life. A lot of the information that's presented to the public surrounding the case today is thanks to the research and work that was done by Donnie Eicher. Mm-hmm. So he's really made a commendable effort at keeping the memory of the Dyatlov incident alive. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like, his book goes into research from the case files, from the inquiry, from notes from the autopsies. He looks at absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. And it's a book I've read over and over again. I brought the book to Italy, now that you mention it. Lie. I carried it with me. It was one of 3 books.
Because during the videos on YouTube, you showed me, you whipped out the book and you started flipping through it, pointing stuff out.
I will absolutely recommend it if you're even remotely interested in this case.
And if you don't have the attention span for that, I recommend the old BuzzFeed Unsolved 7-minute long YouTube video about it as well. That one's pretty good.
They also did a pretty solid job. Buckle up, fuckers. So I think before we go into actual history, I want to talk about the hikers.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, obviously we will go into more depth about the incident itself and the leading up to it. But the Dyatlov Pass incident involved a group of 10 hikers, 8 men and 2 women, who were hiking the Ural Mountains in Russia. So obviously it's important to kind of introduce the people who were on this trek. And part of me, selfishly, really wants to hear Jamie read their names because they're all very Russian names. And I know that I'm going to butcher them for sure. But we all know how good Jamie is with foreign names. So.
Do you want it in English or Russian?
Yes.
Igor. Yuri.
No. Last names too.
Okay. Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov. Yuri Nikolaevich Doroshekno.
I wish you guys could see her face.
Lidumila Alexandrova Dubinina.
Mm-hmm.
Krivonishenko. There's so many people.
Okay, you can stop there.
Okay.
That was just Nikolai. So, starting with the leader of the group, the most famous based on what this case is even called. We'll start with Igor Dyatlov. Igor Dyatlov was born in 1937. He was a student of radio engineering. He was a very talented engineer who actually designed and assembled a radio during his second year that he would bring on his hikes, which was awesome. People who knew Igor Dyatlov described him as a thoughtful man who never rushed his decisions, which I think should be pointed out. So Igor was 23 years old at the time of the hike. And I'm going to keep pointing out their ages because it's important. Next on the list was Zinaida Kolmogorova, also born in 1937. She was a fourth-year student and a radio engineering major at the UPI University. She was also an experienced hiker. She had had her fair share of difficulties from these hikes. During one of her trips, she was bitten by a viper, which is nuts. Despite being bitten by this viper and the obvious pain and suffering that this bite caused her, she wouldn't lighten her load. She refused, and she was unwilling to pass off any of the heaviness to the others on the hike. She completed the trek, did what she needed to do, and then got treated for it.
Whoa.
So that just goes to show what kind of person she was. So she was 22 at the time of the hike.
Too young.
Then we have the only other female that joined the hike, Ludmila Dubinina. She was born in 1938. She was a third-year student in UPI in engineering and economics. She was active in the tourist club, so the tourist club meaning like the hiking club, not in like traveling and being a tourist like we would initially think. She also liked to sing and take pictures. A lot of the pictures that we see as not evidence, but like things that have been gathered and archived from the Dyatlov Pass incident, because they brought a camera and a tour diary with them. A lot of the pictures were taken by Ludmila. Also a very tough woman. During an expedition to the eastern Sayan Mountains in 1957, she received an accidental gunshot from another hiker who was cleaning a rifle. She apparently did not complain at all during the transportation and felt sorry for causing too many troubles to the group, which is nuts to me. So Ludmila was 20 years old at the time of the hike. We then have Alexander Kolevatov, born in 1934. He was a physics major. He distinguished himself as a good student at his former school, where he went to school for metallurgy. And he decided to move to Moscow to work in a secret institute for the Ministry of Medium Machine Building, which is very conspicuous and very much what I picture coming out of Soviet Russia. In 1956, he moved back and joined UPI, and his friends described him as diligent, pedantic, and methodical with clear leadership qualities. So Alexander was 24 at this time. We then have, this is the one that I'm not confident in, Rustem Slobodin, I don't know. He was born in 1936. He graduated from UPI in 1959. Very athletic. His friends described him as honest and decent, although quiet at times. He liked to play the mandolin, and he often took that mandolin with him during long hiking trips. So they had plenty of instruments that they brought with them, which was kind of rebellious for a group of their age in the USSR. So playing music and having fun was unheard of. So it was very poignant that he made sure to bring an instrument with him and keep people entertained. So that's the type of person he was. And Rustam was 23 during the time of the hike. We then have, there's three Yuris. So we're going to be very distinct about this. We have Yuri Krivonoshenko, who was born in 1935 and graduated from UPI in 1959. Interesting thing about Yuri Krivonoshenko, while working in a secret nuclear facility, he experienced a disaster that became known as the Kushtumkoy accident. So on September 29th in 1957, the plutonium plant he was working at experienced a radioactive leak. Yuri, or George, as he's also known, Krivonoshenko, was among the people who was sent to clean up the plutonium spill. His body experienced traces of radioactivity that some people trace to this particular event. But, it's highly unlikely that any of that is related. Highly unlikely that any of the clothes that he would have been wearing during this cleanup would have been worn or kept 2 years later. But some
and
conspiracy.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah. Oh, big time. But a lot of far out conspiracies like to tie that together. There's also Yuri Doroshenko, who was born. Oh, sorry. I should also say Yuri was 23 at the time of the. Our next Yuri Doroshenko, was born in 1938 and was also, of course, a student at UPI. He was formerly in a relationship with Zina Kolmogorova, the first lady that I mentioned. They had broken up, but he kept a good relationship with her. And she also had a thing with Igor, I think.
Ooh.
But Yuri was still good friends with Igor too. So Yuri was 21 at the time of the hike. There's only 3 more, I promise. We then have a little bit of a switch up. We have Nikolai Thibault Brignol. Born in 1934, he graduated in civil engineering at UPI in 1958. He was the son of a French communist who was executed during the Stalin years. He himself was born in a concentration camp for political prisoners. So a very rough start to life. But his friends liked him for his energy, his good sense of humor, and his generally friendly, open character. People who knew him said that he had an incredible sense of care about all members of his friend groups, all members of his kind of little squad. And he was very well known for helping younger or weaker members of his groups to carry their things on hikes, to do what needed to be done. Nikolai promised his mother that the Dyatlov Pass would be his last hiking trip, because she didn't like how dangerous these situations often were. And unfortunately, we know how that goes. Nikolai was 23 years old. We then have kind of the odd one out. We have Alexander Zolotarev. His real name, it's spelled like semen.
Oh.
But I don't think it's pronounced like that. But everyone called him Sasha or Alexander. So I'm going to call him Sasha.
Yes.
Because that's how I have mostly heard him referred to. So Sasha was born in 1921. He was the oldest and kind of most mysterious member of the group, I guess you could say. He served in the Great Patriotic War from 1941 until 1946. The survival rate for his generation, like those born 1921-22, was 3%. So Sasha was very lucky. No one knows why he introduced himself as Sasha. No one knows why he introduced himself as Alexander. There's no credible evidence of his identity really at all. It's known that he joined a communist party after the war. He transferred after the war to the Leningrad Military Engineering University. He worked as a hiking guide for a little bit. It's hard to explain a lot of points in his biography, which is fine. Obviously, exploring the history of the USSR has its complications. So we don't know. It's highly unusual that, being a Cossack from the South, he never got married, never had kids, and had numerous strange tattoos that he hid under his clothing, including his birth year, a military slogan. So who knows? We can only really make guesses. He was supposed to celebrate his 38th birthday on February 2nd. That also became the day of his death. And last, but absolutely not least, is a person that we have referenced before in all of this. A man named Yuri Yudin. Yuri Yudin was born in 1937, and he was a fourth-year student at UPI. Yuri left the expedition before the last leg due to medical reasons. So Yuri was having some back problems. He had been on another hike not very long before and hurt his back, and he was experiencing some pretty painful flare-ups from that, and he didn't feel that it would be a smart decision to carry on. He didn't think it would be good for him, and he didn't want to hold the group back having to take care of him. So he decided that after they got to their last check stop, that he would turn around and go back. As a result, Yuri is known as the only survivor from this group of hikers.
Yeah.
And Yuri was the man that Donnie Eicher had the privilege of being able to interview, to sit down with, and to hear his perspective on who these hikers were and the energy going into the hike. Yuri's the only one who truly knows what things were like up until there literally is no one who knows. So that is our group of heroes, our group of
travelers.
Yeah. Tourists, as they would say. The hike itself. We've got 8 men. We've got 2 women. They are all incredibly experienced hikers, unlike Jamie and myself.
Speak for yourself.
I will. But they are all super experienced, very prepared to embark on what is considered a Category 3 hike. So basically, in order to assess the capabilities, I guess, of the hikers, or of these hikes and their difficulties, it's essentially like looking at a sports classification, like ranks and leagues in other sports. So they're looking at how many hikes a person has been on previously, what role they played in the hike, like did they just hike, were they planning the hike, were they leading the hike, what experiences did they have, what seasons were the hikes taking place in. They looked at all of those little things to come up with categories for both the hikes and the hikers. So Category 3 was considered to be the most difficult. So the Category 3 hike that they had planned was to go through a 14-day hike to reach the Otorten. I don't know what that. It's a mountain. About 20 kilometers or 12 miles north of the site where they ended up being found. Yes, it was a very complicated hike, but they prepared themselves very well. Igor had been a leader before, and as I said, everyone considered him to be a very competent leader. And they also had Sasha, who was professionally a lead hiker for many years. So they felt competent, they felt capable, and they felt excited because this was, at the time, not called Dyatlov Pass. This was an unnamed hike. It was an unnamed pass.
Oh.
That they were excited to be among the first to really explore.
Oh.
Yeah. The group arrived at Ivdel, a city at the center of the northern province of, Sverdlovsk Oblast. They arrived at Ivdel by train on January 25th of 1959. They took the train, then they took a truck to Vizay, which was considered to be the last inhabited settlement that far north. And their plan was to walk from Vizay, to walk from the settlement to Otorten, the mountain. The train and the truck would bring them to January 27th. So January 27th, 1959 is considered really the last time that we're hearing much from the group, I guess. As I briefly mentioned before, the group had a diary that they used to keep track of their memories, keep track of their plan. It wasn't super in-depth by any means. They weren't sitting there going, "Dear diary, today Yuri made sausages over the fire.
That's me.
Igor plugged in his radio and we listened to them play on the mandolin." They literally were writing like little goofy notes to each other. So their diary started January 23rd, 2 days before, as they're prepping everything. One of the entries in the diary says, "I wonder what awaits us in this trip. What will be new? The boys solemnly swore not to smoke the entire trip. I wonder how much they have willpower, if they can get by without cigarettes. Everyone is sleeping, and Ural Taika is spread in all directions." So they're literally like it's stream of consciousness. January 24th, they said 7 a.m. We arrived in Serov. We traveled with a group of Blinov. They have things for hunting and other accessories. At this station, we were met with hospitality, in quotation marks.
Oh.
It says they didn't allow us into the building. The policeman stares at us suspiciously. There is no crime or violation as under communism. Krivonoshenko started to sing a song, and a cop grabbed him and took him away. Sergeant explained that the rules of Section 3 prohibited all activity that would disturb the peace of passengers. It is perhaps the only train station where the songs are forbidden. So this just, it gives you an idea of what life was like. These are just kids who are fucking around, listening to music, playing songs, excited to go on this, like, group trip. Which, it's stuff like this that tugs at the heartstrings, right? So the night of the 25th, as I said, they arrived at Ivdel. So Ivdel is 340 kilometers north of their starting point. They get to this so-called hotel. This settlement that is lived in is essentially like, it's a ghost town. It's a settlement in the Soviet Union. There's not a lot happening. There's not a lot going on. So Krivonoshenko wrote this in the diary. And I think it paints a really nice picture of what this town was like. January 26, 1959. We slept in a so-called hotel. 2 people per bed. Sasha and Krivonoshenko slept on the floor between beds. Woke up at 9 a.m. Everyone slept well despite the fact we did not completely close the small window and the room got a bit cold. Outside temperature is negative 17 degrees Celsius. We did not boil in the morning. Wood is moist. In the evening, it took us 6 hours to boil water.
What?
Went to lunch in the dining room. Had some goulash and tea. Then they served tea Igor Dyatlov spoke with a smile. If the tea is cold, then go out and drink it on the street. It will be hot. The original thought agreed to go to 41 by car. We left only at 1:10. Froze while riding on top of Gas 63. While traveling, sang songs, discussed various topics, including love, friendships, and problems of cure for cancer. 41st Settlement, they met us friendly, gave us a private room in the hostel, talked with the local workers. I remembered particularly the red-bearded man. The Beard, as his friends called him. Ognev, old friend, described by Luba Dubinina in her private diary. Cooked lunch, then ate and now resting. Half the group is watching a movie, another is sitting on backpacks doing their things. Rustam is playing his mandolin while talking with Nikki, and I am going to deal with adjusting the equipment. Krivanashenko. So really just, they're settling in. They're experiencing all the parts of a little town and just doing things that kids are doing. Talking about love and friendships and the cure for cancer. They're taking pictures. We'll post a bunch of the pictures they took of them riding around the truck that drove them from Ivdel. It's just like an old wood, like a potato truck that you'd see on a farm. And they're just riding in the back, having the time of their lives. They have no idea what's about to come. On January 28th, before they left and set out on the longest part of their trek, the real hike, Yuri was forced to go back because of his illness, because of his pain. The hike itself started out fairly late on February 1st, and they only traveled about 4 kilometers that day. The excess gear and food that they had was stored on a platform in the forest, essentially a camp base. So base camp was set up around 5 p.m. on a slope, just 16 kilometers from Mount Atorton. According to their diary, they had their dinner around 6-7 p.m., and 1 or 2 members of the group went outside to relieve themselves. And then something went catastrophically wrong. What we know from there. It had been agreed beforehand that Igor Dyatlov would send a telegram to their sports club as soon as they returned to Vizay. Essentially to let people know, yeah, we've made it. This is where we're at. This is our checkpoint. And it was expected that this would happen no later than February 12th. They had accounted for the weather. They had accounted for illness. They had accounted for all of the bumps in the road that they could, or so they thought. But Dyatlov had told Yudin that he expected to be longer. So even though February 12th was the date they were supposed to hear from them, when that date passed and no message was received, there was no immediate reaction because you're on a hike in the winter. It's expected that there's going to be the unexpected. It wasn't until the relatives of the hikers started to panic that the head of the UPI sent the first rescue groups on February 20th. So 8 days after they were expected to hear from them. This first group of rescue operators consisted of volunteer
that also
students.
feels too long for me.
Yeah, exactly.
After like 3 days, because it's like those first few days are the most important for survival.
That's the thing. Like, that's what gets me is I understand there's going to be some variation, but you know this is a Category 3 hike. You know you've sent your students out here.
You know there's a plan in place.
Yeah, you know it's the winter in Russia. So even the most experienced hikers should have that support. There's a reason that safety system is in place in the first place. So after the volunteers didn't find anything, the army and the police became involved, and they brought planes and helicopters to join the rescue operation. It wouldn't be until February 26th that the searchers came upon an abandoned and badly damaged tent right along the slope where they had set up their base camp.
Also, that is unintentionally the day we're recording.
Yeah, so Jamie and I were talking about this before, going over our notes, and we realized that today is that day.
So that's fun.
So what is that? It was 1959. So, 59. 65 years to this day, they found the remains of the first part of the crew. The student who found the tent said, and I quote, "The tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind." Investigators pointed out that the tent had clearly been cut open from the inside, and that whoever had fled in socks or barefoot. All of the shoes were left behind. There was a chain of 8 or 9 sets of footprints left by several people who were wearing socks, a single shoe, or barefoot, as if they left in a panic, could be followed and led down towards the edge of the nearby woods, on the opposite side of the pass. But after about 500 meters, they were covered with snow. At this forest edge, under a large cedar, the search party found the remains of a fire, along with the bodies of Yuri Krivonoshenko and Yuri Doroshenko. Both the men were dressed only in their underwear, with no shoes. The branches on the cedar tree were broken up to 5 meters high. The medical examiner recorded liver mortis on the back, but Krivonoshenko was found facing up.
What is that?
So, liver mortis, so essentially the accumulation of blood, right? So if you have, think about a blood blister. The blood all comes to the surface, right? So, yeah. Where your blood is all going to end up pooling if your body's laying somewhere, the gravity after you've passed will carry all the blood to a certain spot, which will cause, that pinky, dark purplish spotting on bodies.
And it was found on the opposite side of her?
Yeah. So, of him.
Okay.
So, Krivonoshenko had liver mortis on his back, so the blood had pooled to his back. But he was found facing up, which indicated, according to reports, that someone or something had moved them after their death. On February 27th, between the cedar tree and the tent, so between where they found Krivonoshenko and Doroshenko and where they found the base camp, the researchers found Igor Dyatlov and Zenaida Kolmogorova. 6 days later, on March 5th, they found Rustam Slobodin. These 3 seemed to have died in poses that suggested they were attempting to return to the tent. Autopsy reports do not show injuries that might have led to their death, but do suggest that it could have been hypothermia. Slobodin had a small crack in his skull, but it wasn't considered large enough or in a sensitive enough area to be considered a fatal wound. But it should be noted that that was there. The remaining 4 hikers wouldn't be found for more than 2 months. On May 5th, Finally, under 4 meters of snow, in a ravine, about 50 meters farther into the woods from the cedar tree, they found the bodies of the remaining 4 hikers. They were better dressed.
Post a map of this as well.
Yes. These 4 were better dressed than the others, considering the others were in virtually no clothing whatsoever. And there were signs that those who had died first had their clothes taken by the others. Nikolai was wearing Dubinina's fur coat and hat. Dubinina was wearing a brown sweater that supposedly had tested radioactive and was most probably Krivonashenko's. Zolotarov had Doroshenko's hat, and Kolevatov was wearing Doroshenko's overalls, the waistband of his sweater, and the lower part of his ski trousers. It would be the examination of those 4 bodies that changed the course of the whole investigation. They did find fatal injuries. Nikolai had major skull damage. Both Dubinina and Zolotarov had major chest fractures. According to the doctor who did the medical examination, the force required to cause such damage would have had to have been extremely high, and he compared it to the force of a car crash.
Jesus.
It should be noted, however, that the bodies had no external wounds.
That's what messes me up.
So it was as though there was a high level of pressure, like when you're squeezing a water bottle, but just on the inside. Dubinina was found to be missing her tongue. There was clearly some sort of threat, and this group really did everything they could to get out of it. They dug a den out of the snow. They had what seemed to look like a fire pit started. Their bodies were found a few feet from their improvised shelter, as if they were outside of their shelter. And some of their clothes had been taken off, but hadn't been used. Without going into too much graphic detail, even though I know that I definitely just did anyway. The state of their bodies was not normal. Further examination, Doroshenko also had pulmonary edema and pulmonary contusion as a result of blunt trauma. Krivonashenko bit off a piece of his own knuckle, possibly to stay awake, possibly to stifle a cry. Like holding his hand like this.
Yeah.
He had 3rd-degree burns that cannot be sustained if you fall asleep still alive. It was considered that Dyatlov had been vomiting blood, and Kolmogorova had a baton-shaped bruise on her waist from what? We don't know. The cause of death was considered hypothermia.
Yeah, okay.
Nobody suspected foul play. The skull trauma that Rustam had cannot be attributed to clumsiness or disorientation. Somebody hit him in the head.
Yeah.
Something hit him in the head. There's too many small things for it to be accidental.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too many small things happening to a group of 9 people.
Yeah.
So what gets me about this, and what I don't want to say makes me emotional because that sounds ridiculous, but what kind of tugs at my heartstrings about this case is that these people did not die, these kids did not die peacefully.
No.
We will never know what happened for sure. But what we can know, without a doubt in our minds, is that they died scared. And even though their friends were there, they died alone.
That part does make me emotional because I don't want to go away like that. I don't want to die like that.
No, God, no.
No one should have to, of course.
That's the thing. And there's a really good testimony in Donnie Eicher's book.
Yeah.
How Yuri said that they were just good kids. They were just friends. And he doesn't know how he got lucky enough to not be subjected to what they did. But he knows that they didn't deserve that. Nobody does, obviously. But it's hard to consider that could have been you.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what happened. But you know that it took away your friends. To survive all of the hardships that were present in the USSR.
Mm-hmm.
To go into doing something just to be 20.
Yeah.
And come out of it with blunt force trauma, missing chunks of your body, and to not be found even though you were exactly where you should have been. So that's one thing that we also get from, and I guess it's a good time to transition into that sort of thing. Because realistically, we could talk about the injuries and the autopsy reports for hours. I could. And I have.
I know.
And I have subjected Jamie to it several times. We have documentation from their diary. We have their photos.
Mm-hmm.
We may not really know much, but we know that they did have some strange experiences along their journey. Would you like to talk about those? Because I feel like...
I don't know anything about it. I just know that there was lights. I did also want to say, afterwards they found radiation on the bodies and clothes, some of them.
See, that's what I was talking about with...
But it can't be related to the earlier thing, like...
No, because it's... The traces of radioactive substances...
The plutonium?
Yeah. He's definitely not... Like, he was a smart enough... I mean, obviously, I don't know the guy. But I can almost guarantee he's smart enough to not keep the clothes that he wore when he cleaned up a plutonium leak.
And take
then
them hiking.
Still wear them on a hike.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't say much confidently, but I can say that.
And also, share clothes with your friends before their deaths so that, hey, I know I wore this during a chemical spill, but you can wear this too.
I'd be so pissed at you.
So, yeah. That's just kind of another unknown. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean there was radiation on them? From what? But
that's the $1 million question, is from what? So some of their diary entries reference seeing strange lights. Some of their photos seem to capture blurry images and possibly something in the background.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of conspiracy theories, obviously, that have come out of such an unknown situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people's interest lies, and that's totally fair. It is super interesting. I'm literally looking at
I'm all about the
right
theories, so
yeah, I could talk about the philosophical and psychological side of things for a long time. But I'd say there's 3 categories of theory that comes out of this. You get the natural theories, you have the criminal theories, and then you have sort of the cover-up theories.
I was going to say, do you want me to start listing off my theories and you can shoot them down?
Please do.
Okay. A more natural one. Obviously, none of these are my theories, but they're just ones that people have thrown out. Animals. An animal attack or multiple, maybe an undiscovered species.
That was initially the story that they gave.
Mm-hmm.
Was that it was an unfortunate animal attack. Until they realized, okay, the tent was cut open from the inside, so they weren't attacked by something like that. It wasn't like a bear jumped on the tent and went after them. And no animal can do the amount of damage required to leave them with the injuries. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, because every theory that people give, it's just there is no explanation for why they have the trauma that they do.
Yeah. Boom, next one.
Do you think animal is a plausible theory?
I think, well, I didn't read the exact details, but I think the missing tongue could have been an animal eating that afterwards, the dead body.
That is a good point, and I will point that out as well.
But not the case of it killing them, no.
That is a good point. And that was also something that people posited, that, like, unfortunately, there are scavenging animals. It's the circle of life, but I hate to think about it. But it is entirely plausible that a bird ate Dobinina's tongue.
But also, I feel like I guess maybe the technology's not the same. Wouldn't they be able to tell whether the tongue was eaten postpartum? Nope. Post-mortem or not?
I mean, you also have to take into consideration the fact that these bodies, especially those bodies that were found at this slope, were found 2 months after the first 5. So they've had 2 months more exposure to the weather conditions.
And they never found the
winter.
tongue, right?
No.
What if it just got so cold that she bit it off?
They would have found it. Like, it would have been... I guess if
a squirrel carried it away.
I don't think a squirrel would eat the tongue, but, like, a bird maybe.
Yeah.
But that's a fair point.
Thank you.
She could have... it could have been a seizure where she bit it. I'll give you that. I don't think that's necessarily... not that I have a plausible explanation for it, but I don't think that's necessarily a plausible...
So hungry and hallucinating, ate own tongue dissolved in stomach acid, hence why they can't find it?
Why would she be hallucinating?
Next one I've got is the, I don't know how to say it, katabatic winds. So that, for everyone, including myself, that means... it's a wind that flows downhill, also known as fall winds. Katabatic winds are usually caused by gravity pulling higher density air downslope to lower density.
This is essentially the theory that Donnie Eichert goes into in his book. And it's one of my favorite theories, not because I think it plausible either.
Okay. What if this caused a lack of proper oxygen? Yeah. Causing hallucinations.
I don't think it's a lack of proper oxygen.
Or
the winds changing the air pressure and cutting off their oxygen, right? That's something like that.
Yeah, because it says they're known as fall winds. And it usually pulls higher density air downslope to lower density air. And I don't know anything about air or science. But, that is my first thought, is maybe it cuts off the oxygen, or maybe it feels like they're knocking their breath out for some reason and they were panicking. I don't know.
Okay. Interesting theory. That is not one that I have considered before. But what I have considered to be potentially the most compelling theory, for me anyway. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion.
Yeah.
It's along the same vein. Not that the pressure would cause a lack of oxygen and cause a problem, but that the wind would have an effect. So I misspoke before. It wasn't that type of wind that Eichert talks about in his book. But he talks about something called a a vortex. Karman. A Kármán vortex.
Okay.
So essentially what that is... He's saying, well, not him himself, but him explaining this theory, says that the dome shape of the summit of the mountain, combined with the proximity to the tent's location, would have created the ideal conditions for this Kármán vortex, where essentially a wind shear is caused by friction with the surface, which increases with height as it travels up the mountain. So the wind shear is just getting taller and taller. And it rolls as it's blowing up. You can't see me, but I am showing Jamie with my hands.
Yep.
It rolls up to create a horizontal roll vortex, or like a mini tornado. Think about it that way.
Okay.
As the horizontal vortex rolls over the dome of the mountain, it's tilted upward, and it strengthens into a pair of vertical tornadoes, or vortices.
Mm-hmm.
More than one vortex.
Okay.
So instead of just being this horizontal roll, it's now curved like this over the top of the mountain. And it splits into these two tornadoes. These vortexes, then pass onto both sides of the tent and continue down the slope of the mountain until they dissipate. So they're getting air pressure on one side of the tent, air pressure on the other side. And what this would do is create infrasound. Think about a dog whistle.
I've heard of this.
Dog whistles?
No. The infrasound.
So if you think about a dog whistle, it's a sound so high-pitched that we can't hear it, but it will drive the dogs insane. It will capture the dog's attention. It will bother the dogs, essentially. Infrasound is the same concept, but for a sound that bothers us.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, what Eicher explains is that there is a confluence of weather and landscape that creates the Kármán vortex, with vortices that would produce infrasound. And with these vortices right outside the hiker's tent, they would essentially all of a sudden be hearing screaming, like the squealing sound outside of their tent that night, which obviously would bring about a huge amount of fear, a huge amount of discomfort, and a huge amount of panic that they could not understand.
Yeah.
So the expert that Donnie Eicher interviewed said this, and this is directly from his book, Dead Mountain. Again, fantastic book. Highly recommend getting it. I've read it 1.5 billion times. So he says, I can imagine they're all in the tent. They start to hear the winds pick up. Then to the south, they start to feel a vibration in the ground. This is coming from the vortex. They hear a roar that seems to pass them from west to east. They start to feel more vibration in the floor, and the fabric of their tent vibrates. Another roar of a freight train passes by, the pressure in the air. This time from the north. The roaring sounds turn horrifying. Their chest cavities begin to vibrate from the infrasound created by the stronger vortex now passing. The effects of infrasound are beginning to be felt by the hikers. Panic, fear, trouble breathing, as physiological frequencies are generated. They would essentially have picked the worst spot in that entire area of the northern Ural Mountains to pitch their tent. The peak spot for these vortexes to be created, and for the wind conditions to cause a completely natural phenomenon that would drive them insane.
Mm-hmm.
So think of the psychological effects of something like water torture.
Yeah.
Where it's something so small, so simple, that drives a person absolutely nuts. The effects of infrasound...
has anyone hiked this since experienced that?
There's been studies done that have captured similar effects in terms of the creation of the vortexes and the infrasound. But there's no, it's all, again, because it's a natural phenomenon, it's all dependent on the conditions at the time.
Yeah.
And it could very well so be that this just happened to be the perfect condition on that night. So while, yes, it's sort of all too good to be true, or whatever the case may be, it's also almost like an Occam's razor situation where this seems to be the most simplistic explanation, naturally speaking. And oftentimes, even though nature's weird, that's the case.
I mean, that does make sense. And
right? And this is my thing, is like, yeah, it's out there.
It's more plausible than most of the theories I'm going to throw at you, though.
Exactly. And it's the most convincing theory I've ever been presented with.
Yeah.
There's a really good quote in the same section of Eicher's book where the doctor, the expert that he's interviewing, says, "What you're really trying to do is reverse engineer a tragic event without any witnesses. And the only way we can really work with what we have is to look at the surroundings. And it just so happens to be that the surroundings are the perfect environment for this phenomenon to occur." There have been obviously infrasound studies done on the effects of infrasound on the human psyche and physiological reactions to infrasound. Astonishing Legends, take a shot that I've mentioned them now, actually mentioned, I think it was some sort of convention or something where they tested out infrasound, and everyone in the convention center got very, very aggravated.
Oh.
Yeah. Like putting infrasound over like a loudspeaker and seeing kind of what would happen, to almost like crowd control, again, like the dog whistle.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting theory.
I think it should be looked into more.
I agree, and I think
just in a whole.
Yeah. I think that has been what a lot of researchers have been focusing on in recent years. Because obviously we have a lot more technology to be able to study phenomena like that now compared to 1959. So it's definitely something that is getting a lot more attention. But like I said, I think it's the most compelling theory that I've heard. But I also like to consider the others.
You want to hit... Nope. You want me to hit you with some probably less realistic ones?
Yes, please.
Well, this one, not too far off. Just the idea that it's hypothermia. Because when you get hypothermia, you're not in your right mind.
Absolutely.
You're not thinking straight. You're not acting right. And a lot of times, this can explain why they're not dressed properly. You get so cold.
You start to
you
feel
think
hot.
You're hot.
Yeah.
So you start undressing, which, hey, don't do that. If you're freezing cold and then suddenly you're warm, you're not warm, you're going to die.
That was the biggest thing in my first aid when I just redid my first aid for work. Was they were going over how to handle hypothermia, and they said, as long as you're shivering, if you feel cold, you're good. The second you start to feel warmer, you should panic.
Yeah, do not undress.
Yeah.
I don't care how hot you are. If you are in the middle of a snowstorm or something and you're hot, don't take your clothes off.
No, think about it. It's freezer burn on your body.
Yeah. And yeah. So I feel like it's possible, but it doesn't explain everything.
Exactly. And that's a big part of it. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record because there's so many different little theories where yeah, it explains a good chunk of things, but not all of it. Yes, hypothermia explains perhaps the lack of clothing. It doesn't explain why they cut through the tent. It doesn't explain blunt force trauma.
Yes.
Like, it could definitely be a contributing factor.
Yes.
And I think hypothermia, if we're going with, I will speak for myself. I don't know where your head's at. If I'm going to go with the vortex theory and infrasound, I think it's likely that the infrasound drove them to panic and try to escape the tent. Yeah. And they could have harmed themselves. Something could have happened, and they were exposed to the elements to the point of being hypothermic. Maybe that little bit of, like, Arctic hysteria would have hit them. But it wasn't hypothermia by itself.
Yeah.
And that I can say pretty confidently.
On that same vein, I think another one, you could even put them together, hypothermia and avalanche. I know a lot of people outright say, like, well, it wasn't an avalanche, they weren't buried in snow. But actually more recent studies have suggested it might be something called a slab avalanche, which is not, what you picture from the movies, a giant thing of snow coming down. A slab avalanche is a lot smaller and more discreet. It's a slab-like layer of snow positioned on top of a weaker layer, creating a dangerous pent-up pressure that can be released by a relatively small trigger. So researchers suggested, I think, honestly, in like 2020 or something, that them pitching the tent might have set it off, and then a mixture of the slab avalanche and hypothermia, took them out, which I think would make sense for some of, like, the blunt force trauma, because snow moving in avalanche speed and stuff,
that's pretty equivalent to a car crash.
You can get crushed. Yeah.
One of my friends and I watched this documentary a couple months ago about, I can't even remember what it was called, but it was about an avalanche in the States that took out an entire ski lodge.
Whoa.
And there's, like, footage from the wreckage, and there was one survivor who was buried for, like, 5 days. It was nuts. No. Yeah, not a chance. No thanks. Ugh. But I knew, obviously, that avalanches had some force, but it wasn't until I watched that I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that would explain a lot of that. But again,
you know what it doesn't explain?
Where'd her tongue go?
But also the food and clothes that were still laid out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say perfectly, but they're laid out as if on purpose. Yeah. Which, hey, I'm not an avalanche, but I would say that wouldn't really work.
Yeah.
I've never experienced an avalanche. Knock on wood. Never want to.
Nope.
But another sort of natural one that has been pitched as the idea is that there was a fire inside the tent.
Mm-hmm.
And so they used something to cut out of the tent and then got lost in the storm, froze to death, yada, yada, yada. It does not explain a lot of the stuff.
Similar to that, so I mentioned closer to the beginning, Igor was kind of inventive. He had created that radio. He also made a stove that he often brought with him when they went on expeditions. So there is sort of a connection that some people give that maybe it wasn't a fire, maybe it was sort of like methanol poisoning, maybe it was a suffocation that came from the stove perhaps not being expertly made.
Possible, yeah.
So again, the causes of the delusion, of hysteria, of some sort of panic, again, doesn't account for the injury, but could play a role in things.
Also, someone from 7 years ago, Ben Davis, also mentioned that the radioactivity, which still messes me up and confuses me, could have just been because, hey, it's Cold War time and nuclear activities were being experimented on all the time.
That's exactly.
Which, unfortunate, but it does check out.
That is exactly what I was going to say. So that sort of goes into the more like criminal side of the theories.
Yeah.
And I think we could spend another probably 3 hours going into all of these theories. But what I will say is that comment kind of hits the nail on the head in the fact that you have to be realistic about where they are and what time period it is. This is the USSR. They're very secretive and very strict, and they are doing...
They're not going to tell you.
No, they are doing weapons testing. What kind of weapons? Yeah. We will never know. So
that's another couple of these theories is like test missile gone wrong.
Exactly.
They're not going to admit to that.
No. They're not going to admit that it's a controlled environment run by the KGB. They're not going to admit that maybe they were mistaken for Gulag fugitives and murdered.
Was it the CIA committing secret espionage activities? Was it the government?
One other... But yeah, like you said, I was going to go into another theory, but that's the ADHD brain. Finish off on this topic before... Like you said, the test missiles... So February 17th, which was slightly before they set off, obviously. But in that same area, there were strange lights reported by other hikers and by locals living in the area. That's been recorded. They recorded seeing strange lights. A lot of people think, well, was this a missile launch? Was it a UFO? Was it a time vortex? But looking at that, like the physical and weapons related perspectives, you don't know if any of those weapons, like maybe they were doing weapons testing. It's in the middle of nowhere in a field in an unnamed passage. It is not unreasonable to think that the Ural Mountains were a spot where weapons testing was happening.
Whether, it sort of depends on who you ask, but if it was like nuclear or ballistic rockets being tested or experimented, did they, one, do it on purpose? Hey, here's some people, no one will know they're ever gone. Or two, was it wrong place, wrong time kind of situation?
Exactly. And there, again, there's no way of knowing if these weapons were, if the weapons existed at all. There's no way of knowing if they were nuclear or not. So it's just a bunch of things that we will never know. Yeah.
Another one. This one I didn't see very much, but there was like one-off comment that kind of caught my eye. What if it was a military cover-up? There was someone perhaps tracking them, or a secret mission to find just one of them to take that person out, but then the rest of them, you need to be silenced. You can't have witnessed anything.
There is... I mentioned before not to speak ill of anybody because this is purely speculation. But Sasha was considered to be the more secretive member of the group. They knew less about him. He was older. He was not as connected. He was involved in military affairs. He had military tattoos. We don't know.
We don't know what he was involved in.
We have no idea. So that's definitely, I've seen a few theories surrounding that. If we're talking about people, there's two that I will get into. A less popular theory, and one that I don't want to spend too much time on, but I do want to mention purely because I want to shut it down, kind of. Not that I'm the authority figure and me saying anything is going to be like, nope, wasn't that. But there is I don't know if they're still in the area, but there was a local indigenous group, the Mansi.
I also wanted to talk and shut this down.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Most people who mention this theory are shutting it down. I think it's pretty widely considered that was just a racist perspective. Yeah. But some people did posit that it could have been indigenous groups that attacked. I don't think that's plausible. I don't think it's even something to yeah, exactly.
But also, why would they do that?
But exactly, they talked in their journal about interacting with the people, especially at their stops, having no issues with them. So again, it's not something I even want to waste time on. but it is a theory.
Yeah.
The other theory that has to do with people and kind of has to do with Sasha again. Anyway, there is a thought that one of them had a meltdown.
I was going to suggest maybe a mental illness of some sort.
So there's, obviously, let's be realistic here. They're a group of 20-something-year-olds. There's men and there's women. There are hormones involved. There are feelings involved. There is speculation that it could have been fueled or sparked by a partnership within the group.
A romantic dispute, if you will.
But more of a third wheel's response to... Or an outside party. I shouldn't say third wheel. An outside party's connection to it. That could have caused a meltdown. As Jamie said, it could have been some sort of mental illness, mental breakdown. Obviously, that was not handled still not handled great, but obviously was not handled well during that time in Russia. So it is posited that one of them could have had just a breakdown.
Psychotic break.
Yeah.
Maybe drug overdose.
Yeah, that's another...
Alcohol, perhaps? I don't know.
I mean, there is theories about shrooms or golden root being a factor. It could have been just a fight between members of the party that spiraled into... Again, like, it's all these theories interconnecting.
I ask you as if you know the answer.
Oh, I know, and I answer as if I was there. It could have been a fight that caused them to leave the tent, which they then succumbed to hypothermia, psychosis, all these things intertwining again. So those are the human theories. The things that it very well could have been. There are also not human theories.
I was going to say, I don't know about you, but I've got 4 that are very not human, and then nothing else.
Do tell.
I don't know how many you have, if any.
Do tell.
So, the idea that it was a Yeti attack, or plural, Yetis.
This is the least... You know how much I love Bigfoot. This is quite obviously one of the least plausible explanations, which makes it one of my favorites.
Yes. Because, okay, it's a Yeti attack because it's in a cold place, and that's it.
So, in some of the photographs, people are claiming that they can see a large furry figure blurred in the background getting slowly closer to them.
Snow?
Yeah.
Snow-covered tree?
Yeah. 100%.
Heck, if anything, bear.
That was a lot of people's responses. You understand, you are in Russia. There's a good chance it's a bear.
In that same vein, we can't really disprove it, but not really plausible for me. But same vein, a different cryptid, a Wendigo, a banshee, something we just don't even know, we haven't discovered, or something that you and I just haven't heard of. Could it be another cryptid? Maybe.
You're in an unknown part of the forest. The forest is a scary place for a lot of reasons.
Could it be Baba Yaga? I don't know. Am I going to stick around to find out? No.
Fuck, no, I'm not. Am I going to be in the woods in the first place? No.
No. Am I going to be hiking in the winter? Still no.
Ridiculous.
Another one is that it was a supernatural or paranormal experience. Ghost, demon, what you will. Hell, if you've ever seen Supernatural...
Don't even...
Yeah, this seems pretty accurate.
If you've seen Supernatural,
but Sam and Dean aren't here to help us.
Unfortunately.
Or kiss us.
Or hold us.
So we're kind of on our own here. If it's something paranormal, they should have brought an exorcist. I don't know what to tell you.
It's true.
And we can't have a singular episode without not discussing aliens.
Thank God.
Aliens.
The strange
Could
lights.
it have been aliens?
The strange lights.
Strange lights. They take them up into their spaceships, do the weird experiments, explains the internal issues without external problems, take their tongue as a souvenir, pop them back in. They got tired of working on cows. Boom.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Like, I don't know. Do I believe that one?
A little.
Maybe.
Shit, maybe.
You never know.
I always believe aliens are an option.
And those are all of the theories that I thought were worth mentioning. There's probably more, but this is already our longest ever episode.
I will add in a bonus without going into it. There is a theory that they were testing out a time vortex and teleportation. And they just got trapped up in it.
I was going to say time travel and stuff is the one thing I wasn't going to suggest. But, okay.
No, it's there.
It's an option.
Yeah. We could do another probably 3-4 episodes on the theories themselves. We could do another 2-3 episodes on the individual histories, going through the diaries, going through the journals, going through the photographs. Unfortunately, I subject Jamie to that on a weekly basis. But it really is such a fascinating story for me. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I think a lot of it is a sense of camaraderie with a group of kids who just wanted to be kids. Mm-hmm. And a group of people who just went out to do something that they loved and had no idea that they would become one of the most infamous unsolved cases around the world. Obviously, they had no clue that 65 years to the day later, 2 girls in Canada would be discussing their stories.
Hey.
It's a fascinating aspect of humanity, how we latch on to stories like this. And I think it's a tricky thing with true crime and a tricky thing with stories like these where, again, we kind of turn it into a sensationalized version and we look at it as a story and not as a case, not as real people with real lives, real loved ones. And I think reading Donnie Eicher's book changed my perspective on it a lot because you got to hear that firsthand account from Yuri Yudin. And it really made it kind of a slap in the face of like, these were people who, if no one else, they had this man that loved them and cared about them.
Also going to shut down the theory that the lone survivor had something to do with it.
Yeah,
and
that's total bullshit.
I know he's not around anymore, but like, leave him alone. Imagine the amount of guilt you would already feel.
Yeah.
And then have people saying you did it.
Yuri's life was not easy. And that's all that I'll say. I encourage you, if you'd like to hear more of Yuri's story, to hear it directly from him in the book Dead Mountain. But I will say that it was not an easy go for him. And I think a lot of that too comes from the sensationalization of the story of Dyatlov Pass. And comes from people coming up with theories like that where, oh, how convenient, he got to leave. Oh, how inconvenient, actually, he got to live up until he was 75 years old with survivor's guilt. Mm-hmm. What I was trying to say before, and then I got myself off track, was...
Sorry, that was me, though.
No, that was me, 100%. I would have gone there anyway. It can be really easy to forget, again, that these are not characters for you to relate to. They're not people to put your perspective on and assume that you know them. when I say a sense of camaraderie, I don't mean it in the sense that, oh, I feel like Igor and I would have been buddies, or I feel like the girls and I could have hung out and done things together, because I don't know them. I never will. They died 65 years ago. But I can connect to the fact that I was also their age. And I am now, as a person celebrating her 25th birthday, I am reaching an age that they will never see. And I'm experiencing things that they will never experience. Because for some unknown reason, be it natural, supernatural, whatever the case may be, that was taken from them. And no matter who the person is, I feel a part of my heart that's going to connect to that. And when it's 9 of them at once, and 10, I mean, Yuri was affected by this. We can't pretend that he wasn't. Just because he didn't pass doesn't mean he didn't pass being changed forever because of this incident. So when it's 10 people who will never get to experience the things that you are now experiencing, it's a harsh reality. It's important to keep talking about stories like this, not for the sensationalization of it, but as a reminder that there are humans involved, and it's okay to tell the human stories. It's okay to laugh and cry and talk about love and talk about friendship and talk about a cure for cancer, just like they did on the train. It's a universal experience to be young. And we don't know what happened to them, but we do know, at the very least, that they had a passion for something and they had a group of people that cared about each other.
Happy birthday, eh?
Yeah. See, this is what I do. To celebrate my birthday, I just get really deep. And talk about love and friendship. Jamie, I'm going to shut the fuck up now, because this has literally been an hour and 40 minutes of me chatting incessantly. Do you have anything you would like? Any closing statements, my friend?
Free Palestine.
Oh, yeah. Fair.
That's it.
All right. Well, if you would like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear what you think happened at Dyatlov Pass. We'd love to hear your perspective on unsolved mysteries. Do you think there's a point in talking about them if we're never going to solve them? What do you think? What is your favorite unsolved mystery? If you would like to wish me a happy birthday, you can follow us on our socials. You can get in touch with us on our Instagram and our Twitter at Creeps and Coffee. You can send us a message to our email, which is creepsandcoffee@gmail.com. If you would like to subscribe to our Patreon, it is now up and running with our very first episode with our favorite guest, our basically third co-host at this point, our dear lovely friend Anna. You can check that out on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/creepsandcoffee. Over there, you can feel free to join our Tier 1 subscription. Join the Sasquad. Joining our subscription allows you to get a bonus episode every month, allows you to connect with us directly, allows you to get a behind-the-scenes look at what a Creeps and Coffee recording session is, and gets you a special shout-out at the end of every episode. So if you would like to hear your name read out right here,
you can even tell us to put a funny name like Ligma.
Yeah.
Ligma Ball.
Exactly.
And I'll say it.
And Jamie
Will I pronounce it right? Don't know, but I'll say it.
Jamie won't even realize that it's funny until it's too late, and that's going to be the best part.
Wink, wink.
So if you would like to take our relationship one step further, maybe do it for my birthday. And if you would like to help support our show, you can join our Sasquad at patreon.com/creepsandcoffee.
Boom.
We love you. We are so happy. I am so happy. It's not Jamie's birthday. I am so happy to have another year around the sun with all of your beautiful faces, putting up with my incessant chatting.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to me.
I hope you have a wonderful birthday.
Thank you so much. It can't be worse than last year, so I will take it.
It only goes up from here.
Exactly.
And it's starting off pretty good so far, I'd say.
So far, so good.
We're starting celebrating in February.
I could be on the side of a mountain in Russia, and I'm not, so I count this one as a win.
Yeah.
Be safe. Only do some drugs.
Keep your clothes on if you're hypothermic.
But take them off if you're not. Bye!
Bye!
Creeps and Coffee is produced and edited by us, Kate and Jane.
Our theme music is Stuck in a Hole by Dated.
For more information on where to find them, check out the link in our show notes. And to connect with us, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Creeps and Coffee.